Hello everyone and welcome to another Genshin lore video. Today, I'll be going over the lore presented in the Marechaussee Hunter artifact set. This artifact set tells us more about many characters that would influence or even join the Narzissenkreuz Ordo, and also introduces a few new characters. Also, this video does contain spoilers for the quests listed on screen now, so if you haven't done those, you've been warned. Anyways, let's move right on and get into the video. To start off, let's talk about the origin of the title Marechaussee Hunter. The title is partially inspired by a phrase which goes, "Pursue the phantoms in the dark, expel them all, and hunt them down." However, the title is more heavily inspired by Cassiodor, a figure from Remuria who held the title. He would also later be called the Golden Hunter, but for an unknown reason, he found these titles humiliating. Originally, Cassiodor was from another tribe in Fontaine, the same one as Irenaeus, who I've discussed before. Their tribe was destroyed by the armies of Remuria, and only those two managed to escape. Cassiodor would eventually meet Boethius, a Harmost of Remuria, and would defect to join Remuria. Eventually, he became a Harmost himself, serving under the God King Remus. I don't want to talk too much about him here though, as I do plan on releasing a video on the Golden Troop artifact set later this week. Anyways, his legacy is carried on in the name of the Marechaussee Phantom, which focuses mainly on investigation as opposed to battle. In modern times, the organization is composed mostly of Melusines, as their heightened senses make them much better investigators than humans. Before the Melusines were introduced to Fontaine though, the Marechaussee Phantom was composed entirely of humans. One of these humans was a man by the name of Emmanuel Guillotins, and he would be involved in a huge battle at Poisson that took place over 500 years ago, just before the Cataclysm. After an event known as the Purge of Fleuve Cendra, a man named Eduardo Baker would be sent to exile in the desert for resisting the Purge. However, he would be saved by his henchmen along the way. He and his men would then take members of the Maison Gardiennage as hostages in Poisson, where they made unreasonable demands. As a result, members of the Marechaussee Phantom, led by Emmanuel Guillotins and perhaps Basile Elton as well, headed towards Poisson. The town was set ablaze during the battle, and many died in the fires, including the mayor Renault de Petrichor and his wife. The mayor's son, René de Petrichor, and a boy named Jacob Baker would survive as well. After the battle, René and Jacob would be sent to the Narzissenkreuz Institute, and would eventually come under the care of Karl Ingold. Soon, Jacob would change his last name to Ingold to match his adoptive father. Now, Karl was in Poisson during the battle as well, and he would be saved by the magician Parsifal the Great. Of course, this Parsifal isn't the one who lived during Mondstadt's aristocracy period. This Parsifal and her sister Josephine took up these aliases from the story of Parsifal and the Blue-Eyed Spear Witch. Funnily enough, the original Parsifal was a phantom thief, which is similar to the title of Marechaussee Phantom. I do have a separate video all about the original Parsifal's story, so if you want to learn more about him, be sure to check that out. Getting back to Fontaine's Parsifal, she would be arrested for taking part in the siege. Instead of going on trial, however, she requested to have a duel against a champion duelist. She would fight against the champion duelist Marfissa, and would end up dying as a result. Karl, who was a journalist before the siege of Poisson, had since retired and regretted that he did not record this final duel. After this, Karl would go on to take care of both René and Jacob, even traveling to Sumeru's Girdle of the Sands with them. Earlier on in this video, I mentioned a character named Emmanuel Guillotins, and he is basically the main character of this artifact set. After the siege of Poisson, Emmanuel retired and sank into alcoholism, while also always keeping to himself. However, his old friend Basile Elton would soon entrust 2 kids to him. After that, she would go and fight in the Cataclysm, where she would die aboard a ship known as the Sponsian. Now, you can probably guess who these 2 kids were, Elaine and Marianne Guillotins. While Emmanuel didn't want to look after them at first, he soon grew attached to his adopted children. Eventually, both Elaine and Marianne would follow in their adoptive father's footsteps, joining the Marechaussee Phantom. Around this time, Elaine would also create Seymour, a mechanical assistant who he tasked to always accompany and protect Marianne. Things were looking up for the family, but unfortunately, this didn't last. Dwight Lasker, the director of the Institute of Natural Philosophy and Emmanuel's childhood friend, would reach out to Emmanuel. He would give him a report about an organization called the Narzissenkreuz Ordo, and their leader known as the Master. Wanting to protect his children, Emmanuel came out of retirement to investigate the case. Unfortunately though, while he was investigating, Emmanuel would be dissolved and absorbed by the Master. Additionally, the champion duelist Marechaussee, who was tracking Emmanuel at the time, would be dissolved and absorbed by the Master as well. Soon after, the Master would meet with Elaine Guillotine. He would use the Book of Revealing to show Elaine the apocalypse, and requested for Elaine to become a part of the Master in order to help stop the disaster. However, Elaine simply refused this request and left. Upset but undeterred, the Master would then rally the Narzissenkreuz Ordo to the remains of Elenis to carry out their plans. Hearing of this, members of the Marechaussee Phantom would arrive to fight, which included Elaine, Marianne, and Seymour. However, an explosion would occur during the battle, greatly damaging Seymour and likely killing Marianne, who was later dissolved and absorbed by Lyris. Fortunately though, Elaine would defeat the Master in battle here. Sometime after the battle with Elenis, Elaine would leave the Marechaussee Phantom. He would go on to establish the Fontaine Research Institute of Kinetic Energy Engineering, which helped Fontaine's technology advance incredibly quickly. Here, Elaine would invent the arc system, as well as the clockwork mecha that are seen all around Fontaine. When he reached old age, Elaine would retire and isolate himself in his workshop, somewhat like his adoptive father. Instead of drinking though, Elaine would focus solely on his research, but none of this was ever published. After he passed, investigations of his workshop only showed that something had been built. As for the Master, he would end up in the Primordial Sea after losing his fight with Elaine during the battle within Elenis. 500 years later, we would face the Master in the Primordial Sea, who we came to know as Narzissenkreuz. Additionally, Narzissenkreuz was created to house the disembodied consciousness of René de Petrichor. As for René's adoptive brother Jacob Ingold, he too would survive the battle within Elenis, living on to the modern day as an iniquitous Baptist. Of course, he would eventually be killed when the hand of the doomsday clock within the Narzissenkreuz Ordo fell on top of him, but he welcomed his death. Now, despite being heavily damaged, Seymour would attempt to continue his task of accompanying and protecting Marianne. After traveling with him for a bit, we discovered that Marianne was now an Oceanid, with her consciousness having been fused with Lyris. After fighting Narzissenkreuz, we were able to help Marianne break free of the illusion she trapped herself in, allowing her to explore the world once more. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the lore presented in the Marechaussee Hunter artifact set. This lore provides some much needed connections between the characters we are told about throughout the Narzissenkreuz quests, so I really enjoyed making this video. Researching for this video also helped me finally fully understand this part of Fontaine's lore, so I loved making it even more. If you want to hear more about some of the topics I mentioned in this video, I recommend checking out my videos about Egeria and Focalore, the 7 Wonders of Fontaine and East Fontaine, and Heart of Depth. Also, I will be releasing a video about the lore presented in the Golden Troop artifact set later this week, so I hope you enjoy that as well. Either way, I would love to hear what other bits of lore you'd like me to cover in the comments below as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.